Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday assessment brought to you by the View from the Medway fancast in partnership with the Gillingham Supporters Club. It's clear enough is enough for a large proportion of fans. We've seen Harrogate, and let's face it, they're not a standout team, yet generous Gills make it far too easy for the opposition. The performances have been depressingly predictable. The lack of tempo and cohesion is worrying, and with every passing game, the team and the manager risk losing the crowd support. The scenes at the end were disheartening, but given the effort, perhaps they were deserved. It's frustrating to see only a handful of players generally fighting for wins. When booing at full time does feel justified, though, you know something is wrong. Connor needs to secure at least 4 points, we think, from the next 9, I feel, to keep his position safe, because we are definitely lacking an identity and creativity. And honestly, it's becoming painful to watch. As we look ahead to January, let's hope for some much-needed reinforcements, especially up front. It is a challenging time for our beloved Gills. So let's discuss what needs to change moving forward. And joining me tonight on The View from the Medway, we have Podcast United. Yes, we have the Views from the Medway's very own Warren. We have the Shouting Men's David. And of course, Mr. Gills in the blood himself, Matt. Guys, how are we doing after the weekend?
I'm happy.
You're happy?
Honestly, it's dismal, isn't it? Let's be honest, it's dismal. We have to go to work. We have to face people at work. We have to try and justify going, spending the money. And to be honest, you couldn't justify Saturday spending.
David, what about yourself, mate?
Yeah, no, I'm not too bad, mate. Yeah, Saturday was what it was. It's becoming far too much of a pattern at the moment. So it's nice to have a week off again this week and build yourself up to going again in a couple of weeks.
Matt, first off, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Obviously, we know you're massive in the world of Gillingham podcasters. Obviously, started Gills in the blood. Obviously, the weekend, you must be so frustrated.
Yeah, it's that's probably a word that everyone's using to describe not just Saturday but recent form. It's people forget it's only sort of 6 weeks ago we were top of the league after beating Barrow, and everything was wonderful and the weather was nice and Brad the kit man was fist bumping in front of the Rainham and everything was well with the world. But the biggest annoyance for me is we're not learning, are we? We keep making the same mistakes. I can stomach getting beat by a good side, but of all these games we've lost in that period, I don't think any of them teams have had to work too hard to claim 3 points from us. And we've gone from being a side that can't chase games to a side that still can't chase games, but now doesn't know how to manage games from the front as well, which is massively concerning. I said that on our show. Don't score enough. We concede soft goals at the moment. It's a recipe for disaster, and the results back that up at the moment.
Absolutely, they do. Well, let's jump straight in, obviously, to the heart of the show with the Views news coming up. So the news, obviously, players returning to the grass, Amer's captaincy, and Bonner's lack of ideas and personality when we are trailing. I'm going to come to the very first one. You know what? Let's start with you. Warren? We finally heard that a lot of the players are back in training. I think Aaron Rowe, hopefully, potentially, is going to be available for Bromley. Same with Armani Little. There's got to be some positive there, hasn't there?
Yeah, I still think Bradley Dack's allergic. But for the rest of the players, it's good news. It's good news for us that players are getting fit. I think Saturday's game was basically a workout for a few of those players. Nevitt up front, Mackenzie coming on for a few minutes. I think it was just a game where we're trying to get players back fit. And I think it'd be interesting to see what the team looks like when Bonner has his full squad to choose from, or as full as possible squad to choose from, with everyone fit and healthy.
Yeah, David, obviously Warren makes a great point. Once players are back and fit and healthy, I'm sure they're going to be getting minutes in the team. Obviously, we did see the return of Robbie McKenzie. Do we think we're really missing him in that sort of central holding midfield role?
Definitely, yeah. If you'd said this to me a year or so ago about Robbie McKenzie being this key, I probably wouldn't have believed you, but he just offers you something completely different, I personally think, to any of the others in the midfield. He's a bit more forward-thinking. And yeah, he just keeps the ball moving, does everything pretty simply, but he does it quite effectively. And yeah, it's good to have him back. My concern at the moment with the good news of having players back is the current form. I hope it doesn't pressure Bonner to throw them all straight back in, because you throw them all straight back in and before you know it, they're all going to be both back out again injured. He does have to manage it, even though I know he probably thinks he's obviously fighting for his job at the moment, but he does have to be careful.
Yeah, Matt, and obviously we're talking about managing, obviously players coming back. Are you as sort of frustrated as most of us Gills fans that we're not seeing more minutes at the moment from Josh Andrews? Obviously, again, I think he only got, 20, 30 minutes at the weekend. Obviously, he did have that 45-minute stint against Stevenage, but can you understand why fans are starting to get sort of frustrated with these long-term injuries? It's that, obviously, Dak being the key one. You know, we've signed him. He's only played, 10 minutes for us?
I've not seen loads of frustration towards Andrews in the sense that we're managing his minutes. I mean, it's frustrating that you can't get a good player on the park. Of course it is. And it's been all too often that we've not seen him. I mean, he's been here nearly a year now, hasn't he? And you could probably count the amount of starts he's had on one hand, unfortunately. But he looks like a real player. And that's probably where the frustration comes from, because each time he plays... I said to someone a week or so back, it might have been after on the way to Saturday, talking about the Stevenage game. I said, I don't remember Josh Andrews ever putting in a poor performance for us. But the trouble is they're so fleeting that by the time a good one comes around, you've forgotten how good the last one was. He definitely makes us a better football team. But no, I was not surprised that he only got half an hour at the weekend. I was probably a little bit more surprised that Elliot Nevitt came straight back in to start. But again, we don't know what the types of injuries are. We're not there every day on the training pitch, so we don't know. One could be a muscular one, and obviously it's longer term for Josh, so we've got to be careful. If Nevitt's was just like an impact injury that's taken a while, then you can understand why he goes back into the team. But of course, you can never have too many good players, and we've had too many that are either under par or unavailable due to injuries or whatever at the moment. And that's where the frustration, I think, comes from everyone. I know players come and say that they're just as frustrated as us, but that seems to be a bone of contention on social media. But you might talk about that a little bit later on in the show.
Yeah, I'm sure we will be getting to that a little bit later on. Let's jump on to the next bit of news. And obviously, this is another one where I've seen lots of shouts on social media about this man, and that is Max Amar. Now, everything from club staff coming out saying stuff at the weekend to people pretty much calling a man who's played nearly 400 games for us, telling him that, in January, we think he's going to go. David, is Max Amar your captain for this team?
I would say definitely for this season, yes. He's very Marmite. I'm an Amar fan. I don't think, if you look at his whole Gillingham career, I don't think he really that often lets us down. He's very rarely suspended, very rarely injured, always available. And I think the fact that he left to join Bristol Rovers, I think, has made other Gills fans' thoughts of Amar different because of that decision. But maybe next year, I don't think so. But to be fair, the only time I've started to doubt Amar is the last two games. The first two times where I thought, not that his legs are going, I just worried with the Stevenage goal and the second goal. And I know he wasn't the only one not sprinting back. It was just watching him not look like he was sprinting was my concern, that potentially his legs had gone. But for me, Little does seem your obvious choice. But again, he's another one that doesn't seem to be able to stay on the pitch for more than a couple of games. And other than that, you're going to be rotating your captain all the time. So for me, I'd give him this season, and go from next season to see who the next captain would be.
Yeah, Matt, I need to ask you. I don't know if you've seen. Obviously, there's people have said on social media supposedly that Max Amos swore at a Gills fan. Can you understand it maybe from his point of view? He's been given a lot of abuse, obviously from the stands. That if that happens to you, I think you mentioned it off air, if that happens to you at work, you're going to snap. So can you sort of feel it's justified almost by him? Or obviously we don't know exactly what was said, but
the first thing we have to be here is be very careful and say that is there any proof that he's actually sworn, or is it just social media chat? Because there's a big difference between Max Amos swearing at a fan and people saying Max Amos sworn at a fan. I'm not saying one way or the other. People know my views on Max Amos as a defender. I've always been a fan. As an individual, that's not important. I pay to watch him play football. I don't pay to watch him and work out what his character traits are as an individual away from the game. What I will say is the booing's justified to the whole team, to the management staff, the coaching staff, because that's not been good enough again at the weekend. It's not been good enough for a long time. There's a difference, though, between booing and then personal abuse. So if someone has personally abused him, then they're going to have to expect it back. I was brought up in a generation where if you give it, you expect to take it back. But again, it's like I said straight away, it's difficult to judge because of the fact that it's just all conjecture, isn't it? There's no, unless someone's got a video that comes out and it's categorically got Max Amos swearing at a fan, then it's just people having a chat on social media. So I understand the fan frustration, but there's always a line that shouldn't be crossed. Does Maxima need to be better as a captain? I think so. Does Maxima need to be better in terms of his form at the moment? Absolutely, but he's not the only one. In terms of the armband at the moment, I've seen more from Armani Little. I've always had no issue with Max being the captain, the club captain, the on-pitch captain, but I think this season I've seen more of what a captain should look like from Armani Little. So if it was to change to Little, I'd have no qualms about it. But like Dave said, if Max Amos continues for the rest of the campaign and then we reassess, then, no drama.
Yeah, Warren, I mean, look, Max Amos, no doubt he is definitely a leader in that dressing room. He does definitely get something out of those players. And we all know that we'll say that Armani Little is definitely another leader. But how many other leaders did Gillingham actually have?
Very few. Unfortunately, this team, one of the things this team lacks is a bit of personal character, in my opinion. I think with regards to Amos captain, I think I've been beating the drum since pre-season saying that we need someone that's a Dave Martin, Mark Saunders, Joe Jakes, if you remember that far back, type character as captain. It's a League Two. You need somebody like that to get you out, someone who's going to drive players and get players to achieve above and beyond what they're capable of and on a regular basis. And unfortunately, Max as a captain doesn't do that. I'd like to pick up on another point with Amos' captaincy. After we scored on Saturday, he pulled all the players together to have a huddle. And they stood there in a little huddle, right, for about a minute before they returned to our half, where he was talking. Now, what the hell did he say? Because all it looked like to me was we scored, he had his word with the players, and suddenly we disintegrated. Now, is that leadership? Is that lack of leadership? Was that complete farce? I don't know, because I don't know what was said in the huddle. But it worried me at the time that they got in a huddle and started speaking, and then obviously after that, the performance just disintegrated from poor to just plain rubbish. With regards to his captaincy on the field, I've always been a little bit concerned about the voice. I don't really hear him much during games. I certainly don't hear him encouraging players and pushing players to achieve of what they're either capable of or more than what they're capable of. So for me, I'll go back to pre-season when I was screaming and shouting. I think I was on the ME7 podcast when they was questioning Mark Bonner. And one of the questions I put out was, do you think you need to sign a hard man stroke team leader? And both Mark Bonner and the ME7 podcast sort of shrugged it off and laughed. But I think now we're seeing that maybe I was correct.
Can I
Maybe
just
you
jump
were.
in there?
Of course you can. Of course you can,
Just to
Matt.
play devil's advocate there, Warren, because obviously you're the most experienced on the panel. I hope I've put that politely enough. But do you think,
Yeah.
and I remember Dave Martin, don't get me wrong, and Mark Saunders and Paul Smith and Andy Hessenthaler and all them types. But is there a case to say that captains have changed over the years?
I think football's changed over the
I
years.
don't want to use the word soft, but I don't think you get captains in the truest sense of the word like we used to see in the 80s and 90s. If you look at Man United, Roy Keane, Patrick Vieira, Tony Adams, that type of captain. I think the game's become so different now that you don't see captains that are screaming and shouting. It's almost like they have to lead by example rather than by almost, like you say, literally at times grabbing people by the scruff of the neck and saying, this is what you're doing.
Yeah, I'll send that back to you, Matt. Mansfield, last season. Do you not think that Aidan Flynn helped get them up with his captaincy?
Oh, yeah, but what I mean is, I'm only going because you use Dave Martin as an example. I don't think you see Dave Martin type captains or leaders or even players in the game. Number one, because you can't play the game the way Dave Martin played, because I think he'd spend all season suspended. But I just think captaincy is a bit different now. So I'm not sure that any captain in any level now is as vocal as what we used to see in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah, I agree at some point, Matt, but
this isn't me saying I think Max Aim was the best captain, since sliced bread, by the way. It's just, I'm just sort of putting it out there. His captaincy different now to what we used to see.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, players once upon a time used to bring their own kit and wash their own kit and do their own boots, blah, blah, blah. Now they've got a breakfast bar with a chef giving them a nice little breakfast before they go and have a little run around. I think players are too soft in the way the world's gone. And I don't want to get into politics on the show at all. But where we've gone soft, right, and we've gone all a little bit wokey, unfortunately, football's gone like that. I don't know about you, Matt.
I think the game's changed for the worse. I'd bring back proper apprenticeships. If
Yep.
you could. But again, it's whether you can, that's the trouble. But no, I totally get what you're saying about it's too many young players, I think they've made it these days, and when they've not achieved anything.
Well, look, guys, this does kind of lead us on to the next point, which obviously, we're all saying football has changed massively. And look, it has changed massively. It's even changed now to a point where we're having managers who are running a football club who have never even played the game professionally. Hence, we've got Bono, obviously. And do we think that's Matt? Do we think that's potentially where his sort of lack of ideas, is from, because he's not played the game at a professional level? No, not at all. You just
no, like he doesn't get promoted with Cambridge if he doesn't have a clue how to manage in the football league. I think that's a ludicrous thing. I'm not saying I'm digging you out. I'm just saying I think that's a ludicrous. Cambridge wouldn't have employed him in various roles. We wouldn't have employed him if they thought, because he's not played a game professionally, he's not going to be a success because he's got a promotion on his CV. He's certainly getting, I think, more wrong than right at the moment, unfortunately. I think his head looks a little bit frazzled at times with substitutions. I questioned it against Blackpool. It seemed like, let's just chuck on a load of strikers like a computer game and hope that someone manages to find us a goal. I found Saturday's changing really baffling. We took off our goal scorer, who for me didn't look injured, which meant we lost an outlet. Because we was like, let's be honest, it weren't going to be a game for pretty football Saturday afternoon. So it needed to be a game where you had a couple of outlets in the final third, get the ball up the pitch away from our goal and go from there. He removed one of them. And I've seen lots of talk about Ethan Coleman and his performance. But regardless, you take off a natural holding midfielder and suddenly we had absolutely no central midfield. And where did the winning goal come from? Straight through the middle of us again. But that's not a new thing. That's happened far too often in recent weeks. Both goals at Crewe came through the middle of us. Grimsby ran through the middle of us. It's just a recurring problem. But I guess, to put it to normal life, all of us, if we're struggling in our work or we don't think we're doing things correctly, we start perhaps making the wrong decisions because we're so desperate to rectify what's not working. But no, I don't think, to go back to the question, I don't think Mark Bonner having not played a professional football match is having any bearing on what's going on currently. No,
that's great. Yeah, it was just I wanted to throw it out there and sort of just ask, So Warren, then, what is it? Why is it with Gills at the moment, and it has been for the last few seasons, where, if we go a goal up, but then we do concede, that we are pretty much going to go on and lose a game, because it's happened against Accrington, it's happened against Harrogate. We concede after going up, and then we're going to lose the game. Why are we doing that?
The thing is, we can go from being on the front foot to going onto the back foot. Unfortunately, we can't go from being on the back foot to going back on the front foot. We can't move forward. Personally, with Bonner, personality wise and coaching wise, I blame Southgate a little bit because and the English FA, because they brought all these new coaches in there. If you look at Harris, Clements, Bonner, they all play the same way. It's all boring. It's dire football. There's no excitement. There's no entertainment. It's coaches that are more scared to win games than be brave enough to win games. Scared to lose games rather than be brave enough to win games. And that's what coaching is now, right? And that's why you've got 5 at the back, 2 holding midfield players, and the rest can just try and score if we can. The negativity of passing the ball backwards, sideways to the goalkeeper, it looks good on paper because we've got 70% possession, but in reality, we're not moving the ball quick enough. And I think our severe lack of pace within the side, which I thought was being addressed during the summer, but obviously it's not, because Nolan's not that quick. I don't think Nevitt's that quick, and probably the only one that we brought in that's got any pace is Rowe, and he's hardly played. So I think the lack of pace is really hurting us at the moment, and I think the lack of pace, not just physically but mentally, is hurting us at the moment, because if you look at other teams, they seem to find space and win second ball and do these things quicker than what we do. And that's what's really hurting us. Yeah,
absolutely. And David, obviously, with what Warren had said there earlier about Bonner, what kind of style of play do you think he is trying to get put across to these boys? Because is it just pass the ball from side to side and try and find the space, and that our players aren't doing it? Or is it that he's giving them mixed signals and, 1 minute we're going long ball, next minute we're playing it from side to side, not finding any space, no movement? So what do you think he's trying to get these players to do on the pitch? Because obviously it's not working at the moment.
Oh, that's not a question I wanted, Matt.
Apologies. I'd like to make sure it's a difficult one.
Yeah. I think everyone, if you ask all 3 of us that question here, I think we'd all probably come back with different answers. I think it's hard to see what they're trying to do. If you compare it to last season, I would say it's slightly quicker than what Clements was doing. But we still don't shoot enough. We've got a wing back now that puts lots of crosses into the box, but there's no one in the box when he's crossing the ball. We're not a team that are putting, bar Nevitt's goal at Notts County. You very rarely see a Gillingham forward running 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper. So we're not really playing through balls. The midfield at the weekend, to me, they were just 3 players that do the same thing, really. I know they say that DN can get forward, but yeah, he can get forward, but for me, it's not his natural thing. Williams seems to be playing deeper when I thought we signed him as a 10, and you'd think he'd be the one going forward. I just think they're all a little bit lost. All the managers recently have all done the same thing. They've come in, started as a 4. They then almost are scared that they've got these 3 centre-backs and they don't want one of them to be a sub. So they play all 3 of the centre-backs. And then we have to go to wing-backs. One of our wing-backs isn't a wing-back. and then it just becomes a bit passy, and the end result is we have one shot on target pretty much most games, and sometimes they go in and sometimes they don't. I just think, I don't think Gills fans know what the style is. I'm sure Bonner knows what he's trying to get across, but for me, if someone said to me, like a friend that doesn't come to football, say, "Oh, what type of football do Gillingham play?" I would say we pass it around a little bit, and
couldn't really give him a straight answer, could you?
Yeah, I couldn't really give him a straight answer. At least sometimes under Harris, you kind of knew what we were. It wasn't entertaining, but you knew that's what Harris did. And I feel, with Clements and now with Bonner, it's very, very similar. And that might be like what Warren said, the way that the newer, younger coaches have been coached. This is the way forward. But at League Two level, for me, again, but when I started coming to Gills, we've been saying that football's moved on. This is not what I watched when I started coming.
No, it's not.
And I know 4-4-2 is a bit of a dying art, but yes, something's got to change. Something's got to change. What that is, I would go back to a 4, and he's got to make his decision to drop one of the centre backs.
I think he's gone to a 3 because he wants to get 2 centre forwards on the pitch.
But I agree, Matt.
I don't think it's because he's scared to drop a centre half, because he was successful playing a back 4 to start with. We go back to the start of the season. We scored 4 goals playing a 4 against Carlisle. We scored 3 against Tranmere playing a 4, albeit with 10 men, and we scored 2 goals through balls as well in that game through Jaden Clark. I think he's gone back to a 2 for the same reason that Clements did, and that's because we can't score enough or create enough. So he thinks I've got to get an extra striker on the pitch, but he wants that security at the back as well. Because, like Warren said, if you look at our recruitment in the summer, 2 wingers. So then we use Joe Bode as a winger, Jaden Clark as a winger. So you've got 4 out-and-out wingers there. So I don't think he wants to play a 3 because he's scared of dropping a centre half. I think it's just because we're so inept in forward areas yet again that he has to get an extra centre forward on the pitch. But we did it, didn't we, at the start of the season? And I think, just to sort of go back on Warren's point about defensive coaching and that, and I think that has come into the game to a degree, because we look at social media across Gareth Southgate's reign as England, to use his example, was like we used to play Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice, who were essentially 2 holding midfielders. But I forgot my point now. Oh, so that was it. But Mark Bonner's Cambridge United scored ridiculous amount of goals, if I recall correctly, getting promoted. I think Paul Mullin got 30 odd goals. They had Joe Ironside got 15. So I don't think it's a case of that Mark Bonner can't do it or isn't willing to do it. I think he's just shoehorned into a system at the moment again, because we're so inept going. We've got 5 strikers on the books this season. They've all scored, but not one of them's got more than 2. That speaks volume.
But do you not think, Matt, that bar this week, where you could actually see that Nevitt and Wiley played up as a 2, all the other times we've played 2 up front, one's always played way deeper than the other, and it's kind of been one up front with still one supporting, but we're still not really playing 2 up front.
I don't know. I disagree with that, Dave. I think we definitely played a 2 up front against Port Vale. Wiley and Wakeling were high up and pressed the back 4. Because I remember praising Bonner in that game, because it looked like we made a slight adjustment and we played a 3-1-4-2, which was nice. So we had Williams sitting before Armani went off, which allowed the 2 in Dieng and Ewan to play higher up as almost 8s. And then it was Coleman came in and Ewan moved forward afterwards once Armani went off. But no, I think we played an orthodox 2. I just think we all become victims of this malaise in front of goal, and we all start overthinking it a little bit.
We do, and unfortunately, as Gills fans, that's all we ever do is overthink. Well, let's move on to the next slide. These are the Harrogate facts. The club was founded in 1919 as the Harrogate Hotspurs, but the name changed after World War II, and the club is nicknamed the Sulphurites due to Harrogate's famous sulphur springs. A couple of facts there about Harrogate. Let's go on to the team lineup. So, Jake Turner in goal. Then, obviously, a back 3, Shadoji, Max Amar, Con Masterson, with Max Clark and Romeo Hutton as wing backs. On to our midfield 3 of Ewan Williams, Ethan Coleman and Timmy Dieng. And then playing up top, of course, we had Marcus Wiley and Elliot Nevitt. Now, before kick-off, guys, we're going to the subs very quickly. So we had, Joe Bode, Jaden Clark, George Lapsley, Glenn Morris, Robbie McKenzie, obviously making his return to the team, Jack Nolan and Josh Andrews. So, guys, obviously before kick-off, Matt, I'll come to you on this one. Any major surprises for you there?
No. I think we all knew that. We all knew that Ethan Coleman was going to start because Armani Little was injured. So I think the only modicum of a shock for me was that Elliot never came in to start, and Jacob Wakeling came out of the 18 completely. So no, apart from that, I didn't see too much in the way of a surprise, because it's the old adage: if it's not broken, I'm not saying we're a flawless football team at the moment, but we've beaten top of the league by hook or by crook the previous game, so you wouldn't change too much for me.
Obviously, David, it was nice to see said Bobby McKenzie back on the bench. Glad to see him actually get some minutes though in the game.
Yeah, no, definitely, and he'll be one that will come back in for the Bromley game. But yeah, a bit like Matt said, the rest of the team kind of in a roundabout way picked itself. Yeah, Nevitt may be a bit of a surprise that he came back in, but yeah, rest of it was fine.
Warren, we all know you were absolutely gutted that Jaden Clark didn't start up top.
Yeah, I still think that he should play up front. I know Marcus Wiley needs a goal. I'd love to see him just one go off his backside just to get him started. But I'd like to have seen Jaden up front with Nevitt. I think Jaden's the only one who's shown any nous in the 18-yard box, in the spaces that he gets into and the positions that he gets into. So I'd like to have seen him play up front. Having said that, you can't play Clark, Wiley, Wakeling together unless you've got a real plan, because they're all too similar. You need someone with a bit of physicality up front in this league. Elliot never ahead of Andrews. Yes, I get that. Andrews was just trying to ease back into the side. But at the end of the day, you've got to create. And I'll just go back to the point that Matt made about Cambridge being a free scoring side. Unfortunately, we haven't got a Wes Houlihan playing for us.
Or a Paul Mullin or a Joe Ironside.
Yeah, but take away Mullin, take away Mullin and Ironside. Houlihan made loads of assists that season.
Oh yeah, no,
right?
I totally agree.
Because he's a clever footballer, right? And he was a top player, especially for League Two level. Unfortunately, I'd have thought Johnny Williams would have been that sort of player, but unfortunately, it's not turned out like that.
No, obviously it hasn't. He still holds a special place in my heart. I must say, I still love Johnny Williams. But let's move on to the actual game itself. Pretty much really incident-free in that first half, apart from the referee trying to take centre stage and not awarding potentially a penalty in that first half. Guys, was it a penalty?
I thought so, 100%. I can't see why Marcus Wiley goes down if he's not pushed or had his legs clipped. He's one-on-one with a keeper, in the middle of the penalty area.
Yeah, why would he go down, David? You even if you were playing up top, you would have stayed on your feet if nobody had touched you, wouldn't you?
Yeah, no, definitely. But no, I was quite close to where that was, and I cannot see why he would go down. My only thing is, not many Gills players really appealed for it though. Obviously, Wiley did, but they didn't really go in, because to me it looked stone wall, and I was. So
is that why they didn't appeal? Because they thought that he was, because they just were that convinced the referee's going to blow his whistle.
Yeah, I was completely shocked. But then I was completely shocked that the other week when we should have given away a penalty and it didn't get given. It was as blatant as that one. It was just, I cannot believe it wasn't given.
I mean, quite literally, you win some, you lose some. I do think we should have won that one, and unfortunately we didn't. But Warren, are you in the same boat? For you, was it a penalty?
Yeah, I thought it was a penalty. Just like I thought the Port Vale one, I'm still not sure whether Turner got a touch on the ball. But if he had, then it obviously wasn't a penalty. But I thought Saturday was a definite penalty. As Dave alluded to, why would he have gone down? And Matt alluded to, why would he have gone down? I can't understand why any player in that position that he was in, right, with the space that he had, would have gone down for any other reason than he was fouled.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's obviously talk about the one highlight from the game, which was the goal, Tim Dieng's goal from a corner in. David, come on, he was never going to miss that, was he?
No. It was nice to sort. We've actually seemed to be scoring a few goals from set pieces, so it was nice finish. But yeah, that was pretty much it really from the rest of the game, because from that moment on, the game turned dramatically after that and became just dire.
It did turn, and Warren, I'm going to come to you then for the Harrogate first goal from their own corner, played short. I don't know, obviously, I'm sure we'll allude to it a little bit later on, but Mark Bonner's interview, he came out and he really did have a go at, I think, some of the players about the lack of marking, lack of picking up. How easy was it, and why were Gills being so generous?
To be honest, I think the writing was on the wall just before that incident, and they had a chance just before that when just after we scored, Ethan Coleman got the ball just in front of me, and he tried the most ridiculous back heel to try and pass it when he was surrounded by 2 or 3 players, and it was almost nonchalant, and it allowed Harrogate to break, and I think that's what started to give Harrogate a little bit of confidence, to be honest. With a goal, you just hope that someone tries to clear it. I was more upset with the second goal, to be honest. The first goal was one of them ones that he's hit the post, he's come back out. It could have gone to one of ours. It went to one of theirs. He's put it straight in. No real blame attached apart from not picking up at the short corner. But the second goal was awful. Absolutely awful.
And Matt, I was going to come to you about the second goal. Having been lucky enough to play football with you a couple of times, knowing that you are a centre back, if you're playing 3 at the back, do you expect the ball to be played right through the middle of your 3 centre backs like that?
No, it shouldn't happen, 100%. But again, I'll come back to the point I've made. It's literally a minute beforehand we take off our defensive midfielder. We end up with, I'm trying to think who was in there at that stage. It would have been George Lapsley and one other who's not defensive minded.
It was Jack Nolan, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was it Jack Nolan? I thought you were Williams still on the pitch then. Okay, but then if we're not sure, then this is what the problem is, isn't it? If none of us are actually sure who was where, but it's just one ball takes out pretty much half our team, doesn't it? And I said on our review show, Josh March has got the freedom of the Medway Towns just to run through unattended. It's similar to the Marcus Wiley one. Like, that's what Marcus Wiley probably does if he doesn't get pushed over. He's got so much time and space, Josh March, it's ridiculous. I know there's been talk of Max Amer on social media, and I will defend him a little bit here for saying he's not sprinting back, but he's not getting back at that. Not in a month for Sundays. Like, March has gone and is away, and he's not missing. So I don't think there's blame in the sense that Max hasn't sprinted back in.
There was a good
our line has
20 or 30 yards sort of between where Max was and where Josh was at that point. There was no way he was catching up.
Yeah, I was more concerned with the line. I mean, we've got 3 centre backs. None of them are in line. It's almost like we've got a W. But for me, it comes back to Mark Bonner has to take at least some of the blame for a substitution where you've taken off your defensive shield and just made it so easy to play through again. There's just so much wrong with that goal, isn't there? On the pitch, the changes that were made just before it. I'm all for being brave and trying to win football matches, like Warren said earlier. It's whether you want to be brave enough to try and win or just not want to lose. And I know if it was in the final 5 minutes, then I'd say, right, you settle for a point. But that substitution just borderlined on stupidity for me. It just left us so open in the middle of the pitch. And given the fact that we've struggled to contain teams after taking the lead at the moment, that just made it even worse for me, and we got punished.
We did, and then, well, really, we had the chance, obviously, to win it right at the end where ball came into Josh Andrews, about 8 yards out, somehow manages to put it over. The final whistle came, the boos then came, and yes, they were well justified, I believe. Obviously, the boos were none of the sort of abuse towards any of the players, I don't think were, but I think the boos were. We're all frustrated as Gills fans. And somehow, after all of that, we've had to pick a man of the match. We have managed to each pick a man of the match, and we've all, we've pretty much all gone for somebody different, apart from Matt and David. So, Matt and David, we'll come to you first. Matt, I'm going to start with you. Romeo Hutton.
Best of a bad bunch, I think. Made less errors than others. I mean, it's a low bar at the moment, isn't it? Unfortunately, I need to get into one of these hospitality things, because that free bar must be bloody good in there. That's all I'm saying from some of the picks that they come up with. But he was all right, wasn't he? I mean, I don't think he got too exposed. I don't think the left-sided midfielder got past him too much. I thought he was generally solid defensively. There was a couple of times I remember him sweeping up and covering the centre halves when it was played through them, which again, you can question, should that be happening when you've got three centre-backs on the pitch to start with? Delivery was all right in a game where, it was blowing a gale, so that made it a little bit difficult. I thought we tried to be progressive and stay high up as much as he could. But yeah, it's, to not sound too crude, but it's akin to asking Jimmy Savile or Rolf Harris to pick up your kids at the moment, let's be honest.
It is. David, what about yourself? How come you went for Romeo Hutton?
Mine was purely on first half, really. Everything we did kind of came down that side. He's always involved. He does always look for the ball. I said my only complaint I have with Hutton is obviously his big statement when he joined the club is about all his assists, and he loves crossing the ball. I get the fact that you like crossing the ball, but sometimes it feels like, he's just crossing it rather than actually looking for someone. So it's kind of like, I've done my bit. Where are you? That'd be my only critique of him. But a bit like what Matt said, that there wasn't really a lot to pick on, and I basically picked him because he was good in the first half.
Has Matt gone?
Oh, Warren, what about yourself? No, I'm back. Warren, what about yourself? How come you went with Marcus Wiley?
Well, it would have been Romeo Hutton, but because I picked him as my player of the season last week so far, and the previous game he was my man of the match, I didn't want you to think that I was having a fanboy like yourself. So I gave it to Marcus Wiley purely and simply because he tried for 90 minutes. Not many things went his way. He tried for 90 minutes. He did the best that he could. Anything really that was good came through him. Not that there was a lot. As I say, I think a goal will do him the world of good, confidence-wise. And I quite like him. I think he could be a really good player. But at the moment, being in a struggling side and having to play in a struggling side, it's having a bit of a negative effect, really, because he's not getting that many chances to put the ball in the back of the net.
He isn't, unfortunately. And do you know what? I said it last season about Jaden Clark, and I was proved right. And I'll say it this season about Marcus Wiley. There is definitely a player in there, and we're 100% right. I think once he gets that goal, the confidence will start coming, and he'll start finding League Two nice and easy. Look, I went with Ewan Williams just because, pretty much every time I was looking around, he was the only one running around trying to drive the team, shouting at everyone, trying to get everyone moving, right up until the point he was taken off. And obviously, he's had a bit of a shaky start in his time at Gills, but he got sent off. He's had his international duties. But I think there is definitely a player in there again, and I think we're quite lucky to have him. Let's move on to our next part, which is our fan zone.
Review of the Harrogate game yesterday. My God, it was wet and windy, and I got absolutely drenched in the first 4 rows of the Medway stand. I actually thought our lads played well and fought hard. It was just, we just can't seem to score the goals. We scored the first opening goal, which was very good. It was just a shame we couldn't build on that. Still, we only lost by 1 goal, not 6, or 5, like we did in last year in Harrogate. On to Bromley now, and let's hope for a better performance. Cheers, lad.
Let's hope for a better performance indeed against Bromley. But I mean, at least he's managed to take out some hope out of that. We at least didn't get beaten by 5 goals like we did against Harrogate. Fan opinion from Daniel from Merthyr Tydfil, up near where I used to live in good old Aberystwyth. So, Mark Bonner surely has to go after this defeat. We can't afford to keep a PE teacher-style manager running loose in ME7. The proof is in the pudding. I would be very surprised if he was still here for the Bromley and MK Don games, because you can see us losing both of these games. Please remove Amar from the playing squad and banish him to the reserves. Unfortunately, we don't have a reserves or a B team anymore. This fellow is a disgrace and needs to be shown the door. He is toxic and a not very good player rolled into one. He jumped ship to Bristol Rovers and came back again with only relegation in his CV. These are the views, obviously, of fellow fans and not necessarily those of us. So, guys, what do you think about Daniel's statement? Warren, I'll start with you. Anything you want to pick out of it?
No, because it's not worth even reading.
No, it's not even worth reading. What about yourself, David?
A bit like Warren. I think I said it earlier. I think the problem people have got with Amar is that last paragraph, the fact that he left during COVID to move to another club. I think if he hadn't done that, I don't think he'd get half the stick.
But didn't he have to leave to go? Didn't he have to join another club because he's got a football career and a family support? Like,
yeah.
Because Paul Scully wasn't offering contracts.
Deal, didn't he?
And Paul Scully wasn't offering contracts at the time.
And that's my reason. That's the only thing I can think of why people are against him. As I said, I'm an Amar fan, but that's all I can pinpoint it to why he gets so much stick, because he left and came back for family and personal reasons.
People want
in
consistency
a point where no one knew what was happening.
People want us to be consistent. He got relegated with Bristol Rovers. He came back. He got relegated with us. What more do you want?
He's consistently getting relegated. Well, let's hope that it doesn't happen this season, and let's hope he actually gets a promotion.
One more question for Daniel. What's happening to the Salford game then in between Bromley and MK Dons? Has that been postponed and we don't know anything about it, or?
Maybe. But Daniel, thank you so much anyway for sending in your messages, guys. Don't forget you can do that, and we'll post them on here each week. We've had another one from Jordan. Evening, lads. Can't be replacing managers left, right, and centre, but something does need to change. I believe captain needs changing too. Gutler's performance in recent games, how he got man of the match against Vale, is a joke. Ewan Williams was unreal in that game. Signing Dak has proven to be a disaster. Why isn't he fit already? Nolan has been awful since signing his first game. David, I'll start with you. Anything you want to pick out from that?
Now, other than that, I was on holiday for the first game, so I didn't actually see Nolan's one good game for us. So, but yeah,
wrong time to go on holiday.
I know. I think the Dak one's going to is frustrating for everyone. I think we knew that he wasn't going to play a lot when we signed him, but I don't think we pictured 45 minutes in the Pizza Cup trophy and 10 minutes in a league game. But it is what it is, isn't it?
It is, but Matt, I mean, to be fair to Mark Bonner and Gills, when they did sign that, they did come out and say, look, it's probably not going to be until the latter half of the second part of the season, until, after January. So at least they were honest enough to come out and say that. So, but do you still think that Dak could potentially be a quality signing that we need if we can get him back to full fitness?
Yes, to answer your question, Matt. But if we can get him back to full fitness, that's a big if currently, isn't it? I agree what you're saying. Mark Bonner come out and said, look, it's not going to be instant. He's not going to play loads of games. He played in that league trophy game, got 45 minutes, looked all right. We got, I think, like Dave said, 10, 15 minutes against Barrow. And then he's picked up another hamstring problem, which has ruled him out for a few weeks. So I suppose we just have to cling to the hope that if we brought him in to play 25 games, it's going to be a bloody exciting second half of the season for Dacky, isn't it? Because he's only played one in the league so far. I assume Jordan means Maxima, how he got man of the match against Port Vale. I think that's wrong. Maxima was very good in that team against Port Vale in keeping a clean sheet. Ewan Williams was really good. I agree with that, absolutely. But I don't think it was a joke that Maxima was given man of the match, especially considering we've seen Shadogi get it last weekend, and Johnny Williams got it a couple of weeks ago. Like, that wasn't one of the worst picks this season from the sponsors. Jack Nolan, I have to agree, has been very, very underwhelming considering his numbers and his performance levels last season for Accrington. Is he maybe struggling with the fact that he was, maybe a bigger fish in a smaller pond? And I mean that with the most respect to Accrington. This season, he's just, I don't know, a regular fish in a bigger pond potentially. Is that an analogy? That's not a great one, but you know what I mean. But yeah, he's been non-existent in the away games I've been to, like absolutely anonymous. And we've not seen enough in the home fixtures. I know he's got a couple of assists from set plays, but in terms of open play, I don't think we've seen the best of him by, even close.
Warren, could there be an argument then that obviously we're playing these inverted wingers, playing him? Obviously, I know he played there for Accrington last year, and obviously it doesn't seem to work. Let's not just put him back onto the left-hand side and see how he gets on out there. Would that not be worth giving him a shot out there?
You can have inverted wingers, you can have outverted wingers, you can have whatever. But if they cross the ball and there's no one in the middle to get on the end of it, they become quite anonymous. I personally think that Jack Nolan is one of those signings that has got a bigger CV than what he deserves. He's had one good season. I like to go to the fan opinion because this one was better than the last one. I agree with the replacing managers. I mean, I would imagine that the club are still paying Harris and Clements their contracts off, so you can't then pay another two managers wages. Otherwise, you're never going to have any money for the playing squad. Something does need to change. Captain, I've already alluded to that we need someone a bit stronger than what Max is. Gutless performance. I'm not going to say it was gutless on Saturday. I just thought it was really, really poor. But I think this team has got a real soft underbelly. And where that soft underbelly comes in is where we do go down. We can't get our way back. We're trying to hold on to 1-0 leads and we're not good enough. We're much better when we're on the front foot. For the first 20 minutes against Harrogate, let's not forget, I was actually feeling quite positive after the first 20 minutes, and then after 20 minutes, our performance tailed off a little bit. Ethan Coleman, I thought, had a very good first 20 minutes. And as for Max, what else did he do wrong on Saturday, apart from that one goal where everyone's seen the video where he's just trying back where he's never going to get anywhere? But I haven't seen that Ogie was close to the player, or not that close. Why didn't he get closer? Why didn't he close him down? He just sort of run with him and let him do what he wanted.
Well,
and I think we forget that.
Well, hindsight is such a wonderful thing, what ifs and all that. Let's move on, though, to a look ahead. Obviously, for some of Gills fans, about 500 of you, it's going to be hopefully a nice away day, getting to go to Bromley, just up the road. But for the rest of us, we're probably going to have to watch it on Sky. So it's on Friday, I believe, 7:45 kickoff. Guys, we have had a comment that was posted a bit earlier. I'm just going to bring it up here. What changes do you think will be made for the Bromley game, and will we be able to turn around the hoodoo, put in a performance and get a result? So 3 questions there I'm going to ask each of you. I'm going to start with Matt, and Matt, I'm going to ask you, what changes do you think are going to need to be made for this game ahead? Difficult question, Matt.
If only it was that simple. I'll start with the fact that we need to get our top scorer into the team. Like, I just can't see how we can start games without him in the side. I'd like us to be braver and go back to a back 4. So in that sense, I'd probably take out Shadogi. I'd go back to a tried and trusted partnership in Amar and Masterson that we saw at the back end of 22-23 when we dragged ourselves away from trouble that we saw, I think, the season before for a little bit. That's for me is our strongest partnership. I mean, fullbacks essentially pick themselves, so I'd go Max Clark and Ramo Hutton. I'd like to see Robbie McKenzie come back in, but we don't know how fit he is. So then do we play Ethan Coleman or Ewan Williams next to him? I think it would be Robbie plus one of them. Jaden from one side. I'd be inclined to start Joe Bode off the right-hand side as well to give that pace that, like Warren's alluded to already, we clearly lack. I think him and Jaden would give us a bit of impetus in the final third. I'd start Josh Andrews if we can get, even if we could get 45 minutes to 55 minutes out of him and try and win the game and then get him off rather than trying to bring him on to chase a football match. So, yeah, for me, I'd go. I don't think he'll change Jake Turner. I think Mark Bonner's decided he's his number one. So Turner in goal, Hutton, Aymer, Masterson, Clark. McKenzie. Sorry, Warren. I'd go McKenzie and Coleman. Clark and Bode from the sides. Lapsley off of Andrews if they're all fit enough to play.
Yeah, and there could even obviously be extras returning. We could have the likes of Aaron Rowe, Armani. This one might even be back. Who knows? So then, David, I'm going to come to you on this one. Are we going to be able to turn this hoodoo around this side of Christmas?
You hope so. Otherwise, your chats on a Monday are going to become painful, and Matt's on a Sunday are going to become very painful. They need to do something, and this is as close as a derby game as we're going to get. So yeah, next Wednesday's the place to start. They've got to go there, put a performance in. I agree with Matt. They've got to go back to a back four, and yeah, bring just a bit of grit, a bit of fight into the team. And again, if Little's fit, I'm sure he'll come back in again. Whether it's worth the risk in the long term, I don't know. But you just need him in to kind of energize everyone to follow him and go there. And yeah, Andrews is a funny one for me because I'm because he's not played so much. I'm still a bit unsure on him, on where I sit on the whole Josh Andrews thing. He still needs to convince me. But the one that shocks me and that seems to have vanished, and I don't know if it's an age thing or that we're struggling a little bit, but Bode seems to have gone from exciting everyone to now barely getting on at all. And I don't know if that is an age thing and Bonner wants to go have experience again because we're struggling. But for me, you've got to get him back in the team. Just pace and excitement.
I think it's because we're playing that system.
You're right.
Sorry, Matt. I just think against Bode, I think we're victim of the system, isn't he?
Yeah, but even in the second half, they could change it, couldn't they?
Oh, absolutely. No, I totally agree. But I think from the start, because Mark Bonner, wrongly or rightly, doesn't seem to see him as a centre forward, does he? So, and he's not going to start him as a wing back. But yeah, I totally agree. Like, if you're going to get him on, chase the game, sacrifice the centre half, and play him as a wide man, and just get him to run at his fullback. Now, was it against? Was it Tranmere? Absolutely destroyed Cameron Norman.
Yeah,
like who's been generally a good League Two right back for a number of seasons, and Bode had him on toast all afternoon. Yeah, it's a strange one. I totally agree.
It did, and do you know what? It's weird that we've not seen him recently. Although I do think if Bode does get a goal, I think that's going to really give him that extra boost that he needs as well going forward. Just knowing again that he can score in the Football League. But Warren, I'm going to leave you with the last question from Pob. He put, are we going to get the result?
I gave up predicting results 30 odd years ago. With Gillingham, you just cannot tell. I'd like to think so. It all depends what Gillingham team come out. Do they take Saturday and use it as a positive with what happened with the fans and the result and whatever? We go into 10 days of training with no game this weekend. We take it as a positive, go into the game, and we give it our best shot. And those players prove to the fans that they actually want to play for Gillingham Football Club rather than just take the money. Or do they use it as a negative and they go out and say, well, sod you, like, we can't be bothered?
Well, guys, before we move on and close out the show, I know we are still, 9 days away. Let's have a quick one. Come on, let's go for score predictions. Warren?
4-0 Bromley.
So you're being positive, Warren.
I was going to go 5-0, so yeah, that is me being positive.
Ask him in 20 minutes, we'll get a draw.
David, what about yourself?
I'd like to say 2-1, but probably 1-1.
1-1. Matt, what about you? What do you reckon? Come on.
Well, Bromley are 21st in the home table. We're 15th in the away table. So I'm going to say it'll be 0-0 or 1-0 either way.
Well, for those of you that know me, I'm definitely going 7-0. To Bromley, of course. Obviously, as we come to the close, we are obviously in partnership with the Gillingham Supporters Club. If you are not a member, please join today. They do the monthly prize draw, which you can see there right in the middle. Chance to win £50 and £25 for first and second prizes. Really nice and cheap. Adults, only £10 for the year and £20 for 3 years. So it's a great deal. Get in, get signed up, and supporting your club today. We have, of course, now come to the end of the show. It's been a great one this week. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. He's been Warren. He's been David. He's been Matt. I've been Matt. This has been the View from the Medway's Monday assessment. Thank you. We'll see you next week. And up the Gills.